Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. I am your co host, Ashton, with my awesome co host, Zach. First off, both me and Zach want to put our condolences out for McVay's grandfather, a very, very big mind in the game of football, very big in the 49ers history, just a titan of football. One of the reasons that McVay got into football, one of the reasons that the Rams have seen success in the last few years is partially because of that connection. So we just want to give him a shout out. Hopefully he rests in peace, and our condolences for the whole family. Losing a loved one sucks. Losing a grandfather sucks. I definitely know the feeling, and hopefully, hopefully the family does as well. How are you doing, Zach?
I'm doing all right. I'm glad we took a couple days before we actually did the podcast, going off of from a pretty. I wouldn't say it's really a big blow to lose to the 49ers because it just seems like it just continues to happen. But kind of over it, kind of moving on to the next week. How about you?
Uh, yeah, a rough game for the Rams. My fantasy team took a rough L. Just rough L's all around, Zach. For me in football last week. So, hopefully this upcoming week provides a lot better situations for both our team and my fantasy team. But that remains to be seen. Let's go ahead and get into the breakdown and talk about some trade deadline news or lack of trade deadline news. Um, this 49ers game, Zach, how would you describe it?
I think this kind of goes with every game, and I think even we kind of broke this down that this was going to be a roller coaster game. At one point, I think a lot of Rams fans were kind of very optimistic by how we were playing, especially in the first half. But then things seemed to go downhill after halftime. So, like I said, I was super pumped the first half, and then, like I said, I just it was hard to watch, and I even stopped watching after. I think when we got to like the last 5 minutes, I was like, I just couldn't watch it anymore.
Hmm. Yeah, and unsurprisingly, this comes as our second loss for a game where we're leading at halftime under McVay. So we go into the half 14-10. I would say the defense was playing very, very well. The only big play they had was a trick play that they keep on running on us, but it worked. Uh, it worked very well. McCaffrey threw touchdown. They would end up having another field goal late in the half. It ends 14-10, and the Rams they sputtered at points in the first half, but overall they had a solid offense. And their defense was looking like it was doing good. It was countering kind of this quick run game, a lot of outside passes by the 49ers, a lot of short stuff, and we were limiting it a lot. The second half, not so much, and the offense kind of went away from that type of stuff, and the 49ers end up scoring 21 points uncontested. Definitely the worst game by our defense. I would say by our defense all season. I think it's worse than the Bills, honestly.
Especially because, I mean, let's be real. I mean, the everyone keeps putting out there that the 49ers are now this Super Bowl contender team, which they may be now that they have Christian McCaffrey, but they're one game above the Rams, and so it's I don't think there should be a whole lot of stock into that until we kind of seen if Shanahan can actually take them to the promised land, which he has attempted over the last 5 years and have failed. So, until we actually see that come to fruition, I don't really have high hopes for that team moving. I mean, it is what it is. Shanahan's really good against playing against McVay. We've seen it over the last several years. So this is nothing new and it's nothing to be scared about. I mean, I'm kind of glad that we're kind of getting these two games are out of the way and we can kind of move forward and hopefully with some of the other things that are happening across the league to a lot of the teams that we were actually very fearful of going into the season are showing a little bit of rust and a little chip in their armor that we might be able to take advantage of.
Yeah, and I will also point out the 49ers started last year 2-5. It looked like their season was over. Um, they ended up making a run to the NFC Championship. So you never say never in the NFL, but we'll kind of get into our thoughts on the trajectory of this team. But it's looking rough. It is looking really rough.
It is.
Uh,
I mean,
uh,
yeah, you're right. It is looking rough. I mean, this game had a lot of good things that I think came out of it. And we kind of posted this throughout the week, but the O line really played clean for the first half, and really didn't. I mean, for the total. They didn't do terrible. I think we've been saying this over the last several weeks. You have been saying this a lot. Is that Bobby Evans is not a starting O lineman, and that is where in the second half that things fell through. We were lucky the 49ers only had two tackles for loss against the Rams, which is great. Um, but at the same time, the second half they were just pressuring the heck out of Bobby Evans, and it really showed why we have been saying that he really isn't that starting position. Maybe he can take a few reps in to kind of give some of those players a break, but as far as a starting O lineman and being out there 80 to 90 to 100% of the time is just it's just not where he should be.
no, at this point, I don't even think he's practice squad level. I think he's barely up to that level just because of his knowledge of the playbook. Um, it's just every snap you see him, he's just struggling or doesn't. He goes the opposite direction on different run plays than he should. You could tell he misses his blocking assignments consistently. He doesn't hold up blocks when he does get them. I mean, honestly, if I was the O line coach, I would just start putting rookies or undrafted players on the line to see if you have a diamond in the rough versus seeing him. Like you know what you're gonna get from him at this point. He's not gonna surprise you.
And
He's
I think,
had what 4 years, Zach,
yeah,
to develop. If you
I
haven't developed in 4 years, you're not gonna do it magically.
Yeah, I think just and I think we even saw in the first couple of weeks that they didn't even want to put him in as really a backup, even when some of the starters started to go down. So I think this was more of a, hey, we really don't have the depth anymore because of all the injuries, and we've seen some of the other players. We have seen players come in and take starting roles, which I think could continue having starting roles. Once Coleman, Shelton come out back and David Edwards comes back. So I think we have a good move moving forward, especially if we get Shelton or Edwards back. I think maybe Bobby Evans would come out and we'll have a way better O line there. So other keynotes that I had was Stafford no interceptions. I mean he went 22 for 33, 187 yards, which that in itself is not super impressive. But he
A
did have
linebacker did drop a pick though.
that is true. I mean, yes. But I also would say that the Rams should have also had, there was many opportunities even on the defensive side to get balls, and they just had
Yes.
lucky bounces, and even Ramsey dropped uh, a ball
Two.
that yeah, one that he tipped and should have caught and didn't. But then Stafford he did throw that one touchdown to Cooper Cup, and then he even rushed in a touchdown. So, but the big thing is that he had no interceptions when he was coming into this game as one of the highest um, uh, quarterback to throw interceptions. So that's super big for us, and just the offense not having any turnovers whatsoever, no fumbles, no nothing. That was excellent. A Rob coming actually making his presence. He was actually wide receiver 2 this week. He had what is it 5 receptions for 54 yards, averaging about 10.8 yards per attempt. So that's where we want to see him. Obviously, we want to see more receptions going towards him, but making sure he's staying above the 50 yards is going to be good. He did attempt. They did try to throw to him in the end zone, but they keep doing the same play. Every time they're
Uh,
in the red zone,
End zone fade.
it's this end zone fade to A Rob, and I'm like, this happens every game. Like it's only going to happen once or twice, which it did. But the other 3 or 4 or 5 times that they have attempted it hasn't gone successful.
It's because
So,
they can't run.
uh,
They can't run in the end zone.
which is just uh, it's so crazy. And they even tried to do a bunch formation where they had 2 tight ends down there, and they still couldn't get in the ball.
You
So
QB sneak it on the 1 yard line. Like, how hard is this?
I,
We've done this before. Like, even with a backup O line, you should be able to QB sneak it 1 yard.
you
Like,
would think.
statistically, it's like 85% or something like that.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't know. It's becoming crazy. I mean, Higby had a not so great game. I mean, he's probably one of the more disappointing games. He only had 2
He
receptions for
dropped a
15
touchdown.
yards. He dropped a touchdown, which, Stafford did in his press conference say, he did throw it a little low to him, which is fair. He did throw it lower than probably,
No,
but but it's
even if
still
it's low, you're getting paid
it's
how much
yeah.
money
it's
you catch
still
that.
it was still a catch that was easily should have been got by Higby, and um it was, I put more blame on Higby than I would Stafford. I mean, Stafford was under pressure. He's trying to get the ball out as quickly as he can. Some of these players just need to be better and need to be better and step up. I mean, Higby did go out in the first half, and we were actually kind of concerned that he wouldn't come back with they said neck injury, but everyone, that kind of looked weird that it was a neck injury, but who knows? But yeah, he had a couple big drops, and yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, so I mean, let's talk about this, Zach. I had been saying on the pod for weeks that we needed to go the quick pass and do a lot of screens, right?
Hmm.
Zach, what did we do in the first half?
Quick passes and screens.
And which of the two halves was better offensively?
It was the first half.
Yeah, and what did we start doing just for no reason in the second half?
Well, we ran the ball unsuccessfully multiple
And
times.
we started doing mid-level passes, right? That's
Hmm.
when Robinson started getting some receptions, but that's when they started getting pressure on us. Like, I noticed in the third quarter, I think it was the out, or maybe it was to Skoranek. It was like a 30-yard pass. It was probably the longest pass of the game that we made. After we made that reception, it almost felt like McVay was like, "Oh, okay, good. I can just pass now, long or like medium distance." And I'm like, "No, keep on doing what you've been doing." Like, yes, I don't mind taking a deeper shot, like once every 8 plays to keep them honest.
But you
Um,
can't do that if you don't have a running game. Like, you're trying to keep them honest, but at the same time, if you can't run the ball, then you can't make them play to the run so that you have more time for the pass.
Yeah, but
Um,
that's where the screens were manufacturing that. Like,
right.
so they were starting to creep their safeties up, and I don't mind taking a bomb or taking a shot to kind of back those safeties up. I don't mind that every other drive. The issue is when you go a full drive doing like 4 step dropbacks in a row. That's not what you need to do in that type of game with that type of O line. Yes, they have been better, but they're still not good enough for a kind of a more style offense from last year,
Mhm.
especially with Bobby Evans struggling after that first drive where they went 3 and out in the second half, and they noticed Bobby Evans just getting blown to pieces. You need to go back to the quick passes,
Right.
to the screens. Just swallow your pride.
Well, the problem was that in the first half, the 49ers weren't really pressuring them as much as they were in the second half, which is, I think, why
That's
we
because
just
they did less screens.
true, true.
Yeah, I mean, like they couldn't pressure them because they would just run past them. And then they started every other play not blitzing as much or not pressuring as much because they thought a screen could be coming. And they were just getting it out of Stafford's hand super quick.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's why they weren't getting pressure. They didn't have the chance to. It's what 49ers did to us all last year outside of the NFC championship. Just quick passes, screens, and runs. And when you do that, you can't have a pass rush.
yeah, but at the same time, again, going back to our running game, I mean, our lead rusher was Rivers, who was doing that mostly because Henderson was coming off from flu symptoms, but um, 8 rushing attempts for 21 yards.
Yeah, I mean, I was all for giving the rookie carries. So, I appreciate them trying him out, but yeah, it's
It doesn't.
at
It
least
doesn't. It doesn't seem where it's going to be. So I'm really excited to get Kyron Williams in and see what he can do. We'll talk about Cam Akers in a bit, but hopefully he'll be. I mean, supposedly he's supposed to be back this week, and hopefully he'll be activated for the game, and we can see, maybe what number running back number 5 can do, because it doesn't really, other than Henderson, who has played well for an RB2. We need an RB1, and we have not seen one yet.
yes, I definitely agree. Hopefully, Kyron Williams can be that guy. We don't know, just haven't seen him. As a fantasy stasher of him, I desperately would love to see him be a RB1, but you just don't know with these types of rookies how they will play in the NFL. So we'll kind of see. Zach, let's talking about Cam Akers. Let's kind of talk about Cam Akers and then roll over into the trade deadline of so many Rams moves, just a huge amount. Zach, do you want to break down whatever the situation is with Akers? We did not trade him, as everyone knows by now.
Yeah,
Uh,
it feels like I'm on the Cam Akers segment every week that I break down the biggest news coming in from Cam Akers, which there isn't a whole lot, other than the fact that the Rams were trying to do some sort of deal. It was reported
Teams did
last
offer.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was reported last week that Cam Akers wanted out, and that the Rams were going to try to shop him around, which always sounds weird when I try to, like, I'm typing this out on Twitter, like, they're shopping around a player. Like, it just seems weird to type it out, but that's in essence what they were doing. And per Tom Pelissero, quote, the Rams turned down multiple offers for running back Cam Akers before Tuesday's trade deadline, and now are working with Akers' agent in hopes he'll play for them again this season, per sources. I will note that Jordan Rodriguez just recently, we're recording this Wednesday night, but just a little bit ago, kind of came out and said, and this is what I said, right after that, Tom's tweet came out. But it's from her understanding that the Rams did not receive any legitimate offers, and that's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, if the Rams knew that they were getting something out of I mean, this seems like a relationship that was teetering on. I mean, it was bad. I mean, it doesn't seem like there was any way that they were going to be able to recover from this. And I feel like the Rams would, if it was a legitimate offer for a second. I mean, he was originally a second round. I think he still has potential. I just don't know. The Rams have had troubles this year. The O line has been terrible. There's been some issues in training camp. I think maybe a fresh start might be good for them. So that was the hope going into it. But if they weren't receiving any legitimate offers, I was assuming that they were going to try to package deal him, whether that was for Burns in Carolina, whether that was for any of the number of players that we were speculating over the last week, 2 weeks. I think that's what they were going for. Like, even if they were going to have to, they weren't going to get anything but a player. I don't think that they were looking to trade for a seventh, eighth round pick. Um,
Yeah,
so,
I think they were getting seventh rounders or potentially next year seventh rounders or next year six, and they're not going to do that for
so yeah.
Akers.
For sure. And so, as of today, Wednesday, McVay, during his press conference, said that he's met with Akers and talked to his agent, and that they've had a good conversation, and that he will provide more updates. I think he said on Thursday. So we'll be on it and tweeting that about that. But McVay did state that he could come back to practice this week, but didn't commit to anything that he would be playing again in the Bucks game on Sunday. So that's kind of where we're at. Just some like very interesting things that I just kind of, when I was perusing and kind of looking into more of the Acres details, is like on Twitter, Akers posted yesterday. I think it was yesterday, Tuesday, the trade deadline, that he misses football. Um, and obviously there are angry Rams fans who like are being very toxic on Twitter right now, which I think both of us are very against. You can disagree, and you can um, be for
Have
moves, against
opinions.
moves, have opinions.
Yeah.
Like that's what this game is about. But we don't need to be toxic in the words that we're saying to each other as fans, as to the players. You could be unhappy with what the team is doing, but we do need to be somewhat respectful, and I think we're losing that a bit. And so that's my 2 cents about that. But it was just interesting, and I mean, even when I was reading his thread of the discussion, it was even interesting that even active players, I mean, Terrell Lewis, an active player on the team, was commenting, helping defend Cam Akers and things like that. So it doesn't seem like this has to be something within the coaching scheme, whether that's directly against McVay or maybe I mean it could be the offensive line coach, or not the offensive line coach, but the offensive coordinator, the running back coach. There could be a number of things of what is breaking down in this relationship, and hopefully McVay can solve that problem, and see if there's anything they're going to do. I mean, I don't know about you, but to me, there's no reason to cut him this year, assuming that there is still an active roster spot. I mean, I guess they could put him on IR if they really wanted to, but an active roster spot and see what happens. I mean, he still has 2 years left on his rookie contract. Am I right? I think that's either a year or two left on his rookie contract. So why not just,
2 years.
so if he has 2 years left, just hold him and try to see if you can get a pick after the season's over. Um, Try to do some negotiating at that point. So again, that's kind of where we're at with the news. Things are going to come out the rest of this week on how McVay and how Akers are kind of dealing with this situation. And I'm glad that there's at least dialogue going on. But do I think that this is going to solve the Rams' problem? No, I think there's already bad blood as it is. But maybe we all are get proven wrong, and he becomes the 2020 person that we saw before. Maybe that lights a fire under him. I'm not sure.
Yeah, just a comment on the toxicity thing. Yeah, guys, just don't be jerks on Twitter and start or anywhere, frankly, and insult people like their personality or their looks just because of what disagreeing on opinions about football. Like you're being a clown. You just stop. Just stop doing it and stop like insulting players. um we can have opinions about their professional like work and their output. That has nothing to do with them personally, whether they're good or bad people, or whether or not they personally deserve stuff or at all. Like they have to put their work on tape every day, which 95% of people never will have to do. And a lot of people would crumble under that pressure and they have to continuously do it with public scrutiny. Like, just have some grace. That doesn't mean you have to like every player. You don't. But that doesn't mean you have to go on their like Twitter posts and start just mouthing them or like yelling at them when you see them in the airport. It's just people are crazy. It's absolutely no respect for the fact that they do put it out there, and some of these people get hurt, good and bad. So That's my 2 cents on that. With the Akers situation, it's just weird. I have no clue what's going on with them and why they're not playing. Neither side really wants to say why, which is up to them. But ultimately, it is what it is, and I think even if Akers comes back, we've seen this running game with Akers, and it hasn't been, let's say, fantastic, Zach. So I'm interested to see what Kyron Williams can bring to the forefront, and hopefully we can progress from there.
Yep. All right. So moving on to the next topic, I'm gonna start off this one. So I'm gonna ask you, Ashton, where do the Rams go from here? We have 10 games left. We thought we were going to be heading into an excruciating, painful couple of weeks, and maybe not. Um, so just going off the next several weeks rundown, next week or this coming Sunday, we're against the Bucks in Tampa, which we are 3-0 against them now. Cardinals, which we seem to play pretty well. We already beat them once this year. Then we got the Saints with Andy Dalton, and then we follow that with presumably Andy Dalton. I mean, he was the starter this past week. Who knows if he'll be during that time period? And then we go right into probably our next most difficult, and maybe the most difficult for the rest of the season, maybe, is the Kansas City Chiefs. So, where do you think we go from here now that we are 3-4?
Uh, so coming into the season at this point, I had us going 4-3. So we are not very off from where I thought we would be. We have looked a lot worse than I thought we would look at this point, especially on offense. I think on defense, we're looking exactly kind of what I expected. Weak safeties, middle linebacking core is playing good, not great like I thought they would. Cornerbacks are really good considering the amount of injuries they've been through. Uh, and then kind of like D line being good against the run, terrible against pass rush, or for pass rush. So all that said, uh, we are a little lucky, Zach, because we face only, I believe, two teams with a winning record for the rest of our games this season. Can you guess those two teams?
The Chiefs and the Seahawks.
As me and you predicted so expertly, the Seahawks and the Chiefs being the only winning records we will face for the rest of the season. Oh, jeez.
Assuming none of these other teams get their act together. I mean, a lot of these teams are in, and we'll break this down when we talk about the Tampa Bay game this week. But Tampa Bay is in the kind of the same weird situation. Tom Brady's kind of either losing it or it's being lost for him. Then it really you see the downfall of Green Bay with taking Devonte Adams away from Aaron Rodgers and how that's all playing down. Again, like you said, who would have thought that Geno Smith would be what the Seahawks need to have
Outside
it,
of that Chiefs game, the best offense we face is the Seahawks. That is
which is
insane to say.
which is crazy. And I mean, the only good thing is that the Rams play pretty well against the Seahawks. So, presumably, maybe we can continue that road. So it all depend. It's so weird. We're in a weird spot. We don't really have a running game going right now. Um,
That's why it was important we traded for someone. I felt like this team needed a spark. I
mhm.
wanted someone more on offense than defense, but I would have taken a defensive trade just so, like, with this offense, I feel like maybe a top five defense could get it over the line. Just kind of like that 2020 Rams team, right, Zach?
Mhm.
Where I felt like that was a championship defense. That team could have went to the Super Bowl had a few balls went their way, right? Like if they don't go up to Green Bay and they go somewhere else, I think they could eventually win the Super Bowl. Uh, but with how this offense is playing, you need a defense as good as that, if not better, to win big games. So we'll see if they can improve, but no trades. It was kind of disappointing because at least you can tell me how you feel about this, Zach. I felt like they put all their eggs in that Brian Burns basket, and the Panthers just strung them along, and they ended up not really doing much to prepare if that wasn't the case. Now maybe they could have countered the Chubb offer from Dolphins. I don't feel like Chubb was worth more than that, so I'm happy they didn't.
Hmm.
But it's just I don't get why they didn't try to go after Josh Allen more. Potentially some running backs. I know people say you don't need to trade for a running back. We need something in this offense. Need something to change it around. And like you don't know if Kyron Williams will be that. I definitely know Kareem Hunt would have helped, or Alvin Kamara if we could have got him.
Hmm.
But uh, I would have taken a tackle or a guard, any help on the O line. I just felt like they didn't prepare for the case if they couldn't get Burns.
Yeah, I mean, the running back situation is just it's. I think and obviously we don't know what the trade, what they were trying to trade for. I mean, it doesn't really seem. I mean, if you look at Carolina right now, it doesn't really seem like they need a running back. So throwing Cam Akers into that mix probably doesn't really benefit Carolina in anything. Because I mean, surely in any trade that they were trying to do to get any player, Cam Akers was part of that trade. I don't think that there's, I mean, maybe one or something that wasn't part of the trade, but I think for everyone they were trying to get him out, um, and it just didn't work. So I mean, yeah, I mean, it would have been great to get Burns over here, but at the same time, there's other positions that also could have been useful. And I don't know, maybe they're saving all of their financial resources. I know that they can trade picks and things like that, but if they had to pick up anyone's contract, I mean, maybe they're still trying to play for OBJ, assuming that OBJ wants to come back to a team that may or hopefully makes the playoffs. But still, that's not a for sure thing.
Yeah, we'll kind of see. Um, all right, Zach, let's kind of break down this Buccaneers game. Uh, both teams, like you said, not in great position. Buccaneers are 3-5. I think it's the worst start of Brady's career ever on any team. I believe. 3-5. Rams are 3-4. Um, like you noted in notes, the Bucks are worse at running the ball than us, which I find hard to believe.
They're the only
But
team worse than us.
well, welcome to the club, Bucks. We both will be watching a lot of throwing. Hopefully, it's not a repeat of that insane 2019 game. Jeez, I get nightmares about that. Um, I believe Jared Goff threw what? Didn't he throw like 500 yards that game? It was something ridiculous.
I'm not sure, but I wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I think that was his career high. Um, but Jameis Winston and Jared Goff dueled it out, and the Rams ended up losing that. But these two teams come on a collision course where really this is kind of like a last ditch effort to save the season. I think if the Rams go 3-5, it's very unlikely they end up going to the playoffs, especially because the Buccaneers would be a big wild card contender at that point, or somewhat wild card contender, and you really need that tiebreaker over them. If the Bucks go 3-6, I almost think their season's over, Zach. I think you start getting in territory where you may see Tom Brady retire mid-season or retire.
which is crazy because I mean, just like 2 weeks ago, he's like, I don't plan on retiring anytime soon. Like, don't keep asking me that question. I don't for the foreseeable future. I'm going to be playing. I'm going to be playing quarterback. So, very interesting. Um, very interesting how things have played out for both teams. Um, but yeah, them. I mean, Brady's gone through so much right now. Um, and I don't know how much that's playing in his head, and how it's bringing on the field, but just some of the stuff that he's done just to his teammates when he's hardly been there for the team, and yet he's ridiculing the offensive line and things like that. So when a team is in chaos, which it seems like the Buccaneers are in a bit more chaos just because of Tom Brady and his situation and everything that's going on with that, it's making them a worse team and a chaotic team. The Rams, it doesn't, we are chaotic in the sense that we've had a messed up O line and we can't get anything going, but it doesn't seem like the players are unhappy. If I'm seeing players on other than Cam Akers, and we have no idea why he's unhappy or why the Rams are, I mean, we could guess why the Rams are unhappy with him, but for the Rams, like I don't see. I mean, Jalen Ramsey would be one of those. I mean, he's always felt like he always tells it how it is. And yes, he's mad about the record, but he knows this team is better than what they're playing at. And there's just no pointing fingers at each other. When you look at some of the Bucks games, you're looking at Tom Brady like yelling at his own line that they're doing a terrible job and blah 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 blah. Like if you're an offensive lineman whose your sole job is to protect your quarterback and you're just getting yelled at because he wasn't there for walkthroughs or flying in on his private jet and blah, like not being with the team, like that's a chaotic team right there that has internal issues on the field. So I don't know. I mean, is this their? I was kind of looking at their record. I know they're 3-5. I was trying to see, is this the second, third? It is their third. This would, if going into this week, they've had 3 losses prior to this. So last 3 games have all been losses.
Yeah. Didn't they lose to the Falcons? I think.
They did. No, they won against the Falcons. They lost to the Panthers.
Oh, that's worse.
Yeah, they lost to the Panthers.
Yeah, that's a lot
And they
worse.
also lost to the Packers. So,
That's
I
not
mean,
good.
when you look at their losses, they lost to the Packers, the Chiefs, but then they lost to the Steelers, Panthers, and then they lost to the Ravens. So, mixed bag there.
Hmm. Yeah, man. We'll see. Who you think wins?
Man, it's always hard not to root for my team. And I think I'm going to have to, I mean, especially this week. I mean, the 49ers, I can always see the 49ers picking up the win. At one point, I thought I was getting very close to getting my 17-21 win, which, would have been great for the Rams and everything. But no, I think I do really think that the Rams will get this one out just based on kind of the chaos of the Bucks. I know the big thing, when the 49ers are 8-0 against, or they were 7-0 against the Rams. It's all about, the 49ers and, they're going to take down the Rams again because they're blah, blah, blah. And we're 3-0 against the Tampa Bay, but it's all going to be about how Tampa Bay is going to rebound and everything's going to, all the focus will be on Tampa Bay and, Tom Brady. So,
Yeah, get
uh,
ready for a telecast just talking about how great Tom Brady is going in the whole game. But either way, I agree with you. I think the Rams will take this one. The Buccaneers are in more of a mess on both sides than like I feel like our defense for all that people complain, our defense is good. It's not great. It's still like 10, 11, 12 in the league. Our defense for the most part hasn't lost us a lot of games. Uh,
No, I mean,
I
really,
would
it
say, if
lost us
anything,
what,
it's
2 games? I mean, really, let's if you really look at it, they've lost us maybe 2 games.
I would say
The
one game. The Bills game got out of hand because offense couldn't move, and then defense just got blown out because they couldn't
and
hold
and
up.
and Buffalo's a really good team.
Yeah,
I mean they, but I mean for but yes, I think this past 49ers game, not even the first 49ers game, I think this one is the one where they really put us into a bind. Or the defense just, and it was,
the
and
safeties.
it was the safeties. I mean, there were, I mean, even some of the cornerbacks not named Jalen Ramsey. I mean, they missed blown coverages. Like, when they should have been following, they stayed close. There was a couple of those that happened. But I mean, really, the whole momentum could have shifted if a ball that was fumbled, bounced, a different
We had
direction.
two missed fumble recoveries and two interceptions dropped.
Yeah.
That's you got to take the when your offense is struggling in the second half. I believe three out of those four possible turnovers happened in the second half. You got to take advantage of those. That gives your team spark,
Yep.
and we just didn't. We didn't get the fumbles are more luck than anything else. But the interceptions, you got to land those, and Ramsey just for some reason against 49ers doesn't catch those. Don't know why, but it is what it is. We move on, and hopefully we see them in the playoffs again and beat them in the playoffs, and we can just say, well, we terrible against you in regular season, but at least we can beat you when it matters.
Yeah. Let's hope. All right. Well, with that, I think we're going to conclude this week's episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. You can always send your questions and feedback to feedback@eastcoastrams.com or hit us up on Twitter. We're really trying to hit past the 400 follower mark on Twitter, so please do that. You can also find me at Zach Mayer and Ashton at Ram Fan Ashton 1. And we're also on YouTube now. So all of our podcast, this podcast will go up on YouTube after we post. So please subscribe, like, ring that bell, whatever the new thing is on Twitter or on YouTube, to stay up to date on all the latest content that we will be pushing out. Ashton, it has been so much fun to talk to you about everything that's happened and everything that didn't happen so far this week as we enter week 9. Anything else you want to add before we head out?
No, I hope we win, and hopefully we can start moving towards a trajectory to making the playoffs.
Yes, let's do that. Also, so as we leave, everyone just be good to each other. Be good to fellow Rams fans. Be good to other fans, not Rams fans. The players, the coaches, things like that. We can all disagree, but let's make sure we're in the right mindset to disagree in a way that is, you don't always have to be super respectful, but make it not so toxic and so, maybe so vulgar. So, but with that, let's get it done on Sunday. Let's get back to being a 500 team of 4-4. Let's beat the Bucs again in their own stadium. I know Matt Gay would probably really love to do that again. And yeah, let's get ready for Sunday, Ramalee. Horns up. Whose house? Rams house.